Chapter 42. In the hall, I found everyone standing upright, awaiting our arrival. All the main power brokers in the event, the three lycanthropiers, Fuse, King Gazel, and Archduke Erald, were shown to their guest seats. Once I took my own at the far end of the hall, everyone else sat down. The air was heavy when the talks began. We began by having each side introduce themselves, given the multiple large nations now involved. Some already knew one another, but I thought it best for politeness, sake, that everybody was on the same page. So, let's begin by having our guests introduced. I turned to Ren, who promptly began reading off names. ... Once introductions were finished and everyone was settling into the rhythm of formal diplomacy, I leaned slightly toward Shuna. Shuna, where is Veldora? Yes, Sir, Veldora is. Before Shuna could finish, a loud, hearty, "Gwahahaha" filled the hall. The doors swung open, and in walked Veldora, head held high, golden eyes shining with curiosity as he scanned the hall like a child about to crash a very serious tea party. At least he was dressed, thanks to Shuna's quick prep. A custom outfit, dark and regal with silver accents, something befitting a gentlemanly dragon, as she'd put it. Not that he seemed to notice or care. I stood from my seat and gestured lightly, trying to calm the sudden shift in the air. I have one more friend to introduce, one whose name should be familiar to all of you. The silence was deep enough to hear hearts skip beats. The guests from Thalian stiffened. Gazel narrowed his eyes. Even the three lycanthropiers had suddenly straightened their backs. This is, kind of, my big brother. His name is Veldora. A small blush crept up my cheeks as I said it, and my words came out just a little slower than usual. Yes, Veldora, he declared proudly, throwing his arms wide. Some also refer to me as the Storm Dragon. Although so few survive an encounter with me, perhaps you all should consider yourselves lucky and honored to be in my lofty presence. Yeah, that was Veldora, all right. Loud, dramatic, impossible to ignore, and completely unapologetic about any of it. For today's summit, I was kinda hoping you could join in as an advisor, and maybe try to stay on good behavior. I paused, then added lightly, or you could leave, if you want. Gahahaha, why the cold shoulder, little sister? He laughed, clearly enjoying himself. Don't leave me out of the party. Well, look, we're trying to have a serious conversation here, so just try not to get in the way, all right? Trust me, there is no way I would ever interfere with you. He replied with a bold grin, like he was promising something solemn and sacred. And if that didn't hold, I had at least 5 volumes of fantasy manga waiting as a last resort. The hall remained quiet as Veldora and I spoke, nobody moving an inch. Well, actually, Fuse and Ellen had collapsed on the floor, having fainted outright. Their faces were pale, mouths twitching like they were processing a system crash. The Thalian envoy and his guards were frozen in place, as if they'd just witnessed a natural disaster walk into the room. And standing now, loudest of all, was King Gazel. He slammed a hand on the table and barked, "Rimuru! A moment, please, we need to talk about this now." Yeah, I figured that might happen. Needless to say, the summit had to go into recess before it even started. Leaving the hall in the capable hands of my assistants, we made our way to the reception room. At King Gazel's request, I left Veldora behind, no doubt a strategic move to keep him from disrupting things further. Not that I was worried. With the 3 lycanthropiers and a few others eager to curry favor with the legendary Storm Dragon, I figured he'd be entertained for quite a while. Now it was just me, Gazel, and Erald in the quiet reception chamber. Seal stood silently behind me, ever composed, while Ren waited near the door like the perfect maid she always was. Shuna had gone to prepare tea for the rest of the gathering, and Benimaru and Hakura were still trying to restore order in the hall. Erald was the first to speak, his tone calm but firm. Before we begin, let me make one thing clear. I've been granted full authority by Her Excellency, the Heavenly Emperor. My judgment alone will determine Thalian's stance toward your nation. I suggest you keep that in mind as you speak. All right, I promise I'll be honest with you as well. Erald had approached this conversation with surprising candor. If he was serious, then I owed it to him to be just as sincere. So our confidential talks began, with Gazel kicking things off. So what did you want to talk about? Certainly not the weather, you fool. Not even the stoic dwarven king could hide the edge in his voice as he half shouted back at me. Why has the Storm Dragon been resurrected? That caught even me a little off guard. A rare sight indeed. King Gazel, visibly shaken. His usual composure was nowhere to be found. Clearly, this wasn't something he could laugh off or ignore. I thought about brushing it off with a vague excuse, but there wasn't any point. Not here, not with them. So I gave a concise rundown. How I encountered Veldora in the cave, the conversation we had, and how I decided to help him break free of his infinite prison. Nothing too elaborate, just the truth. When I finished, Gazel let out a long, exasperated sigh and rubbed his forehead with one hand. This is beyond all expectation. You becoming a demon lord is a problem in itself now. This. The resurrection of the storm dragon. What should we do with this, though? Gazel muttered, deep in thought. Indeed, Errol replied with a sigh, exchanging a look with his fellow king. And here I am, already frantic enough attempting to clean up after all my daughter's misdeeds. Wait, was I one of those misdeeds? Apparently, the two of them were closer friends than I had initially thought, the kind of bond forged through political disasters and headaches. Maybe they bonded over mutual exasperation. Do we announce this, Gazel continued, or do we cover it up? That's the problem. The Western nations are not a concern, Errol said with a shrug. Even in Thalian, I see no issue with reporting this to Her Excellency the Emperor and no one else. But the Western Holy Church, yes. Gazel finished for him. That made sense. The Church and the Storm Dragon had a long, bloody history, one that ended with Veldora sealed away. If he suddenly popped up again, well, let's just say they wouldn't throw a welcome back parade. Secrecy will earn us nothing with them, Gazel added. They'll sense his return no matter what. If we try to cover it up, we'd have to feign ignorance. And that'd never hold up. Indeed, and if that fails, the Church will brand him an enemy of God, and any of us protecting him would be seen the same. They both fell silent, clearly weighing their options. Me, I was mostly nodding along. Yeah, casual interjections. It wasn't a bad gig. Then Gazel snapped, his tone sharp. Are you listening, Rimuru? Why yeah, you're the one who roped us into this crisis, a crisis that could plunge our nations into religious war. We need you to think more seriously about matters, or I don't know what we'll do. Fair. I raised my hands in surrender, offering a sheepish grin. Okay, but instead of hiding Veldora, why not use him? They blinked. Use him. I nodded. There's no point trying to sweep this under the rug. He's already out. The Church will find out. So instead of damage control, we spin it. Errol folded his arms, eyes narrowing. Go on. Put simply, we blame everything on Veldora. Quote. What? Think about it. The whole Pharmus army being wiped out. It wasn't me, it was the furious storm dragon, just recently resurrected after centuries of imprisonment. Rampaging in a blind rage. Perfectly believable, right? Gazel frowned. Quote. And then what? How does that help? I follow up by saying I managed to calm him down. Now he lives peacefully here, and I'm keeping him from doing any more harm. That way, the public thinks I didn't massacre anyone. Veldora did, which softens my image. Meanwhile, Clayman and the other demon lords might lower their guard, thinking I'm just riding the coattails of a wild dragon instead of actually being powerful. Errol raised a brow. That's astonishingly devious. I grinned. I prefer the term efficiently diplomatic. They both looked at each other, exhausted but visibly impressed. Quote. It's insane, Gazel muttered, but it might actually work. I'll need to report it carefully, Errol added, but yes, this could be the best approach we have. Exactly. Just blame the dragon. I gave them a small smile, shrugging. He probably will be fine with it. The chaos had subsided by the time we were back in the meeting hall. Cooler heads had prevailed, and the unconscious had been attended to. I wasn't expecting this kind of furor, but ah well. What's past is past. Gotta focus on what's ahead. So everyone had now accepted Veldora, more or less. It was another hour before we finally got the summit rolling again. Now we were starting for real. Our conflict with Clayman remained an internal affair for the moment, that could wait. Soe gave me a quick report, but apparently, they still couldn't discover Clayman's main base of operations. The fact that he had an army on the move was concerning, but Soe was keeping up his watch. Nothing new was going to happen with that immediately, so I decided to get this summit wrapped up first. I decided to begin with a recap, as annoying as it was to me. We had all been through a lot, but laying everything out in detail to everyone at once should save us time later. I wanted everyone to be on the same page. First of all, I said, standing before the room, let me give a quick summary of what's happened here in Tempest so far. I walked them through it step by step. The surprise attack by the kingdom of Pharmus. The slaughter of our people. I saw eyes widen slightly around the table when I mentioned the number of casualties. I didn't sugarcoat it. It wasn't just soldiers who were killed. Innocent townsfolk, civilians lost their lives in that ambush. Then I mentioned my return being blocked. I was intercepted on the way back by a powerful opponent, I said calmly, keeping my gaze level. Her name was Hinata Sakaguchi, the leader of the Crusader Paladins. She came to kill me. Murmurs rippled through the hall. I let them. She said she came under the authority of the Western Holy Church. And, from what I gathered, she had been misled. I stopped there. I didn't say who misled her. I didn't pretend to know. Because I didn't. There was no proof, just speculation, and no point in stirring more trouble without evidence. So I kept that part to myself. I managed to survive, I continued. Barely, but by the time I returned, my people had been massacred. So I made a decision. I performed a ritual, awakened as a demon lord, and used that power to resurrect those who had been killed. A stunned silence settled over the hall. Hinata Sakaguchi. It was Fuse who reacted first, lifting his head with a conflicted expression. She may seem cruel at first. I suppose she gives the impression of a crazed murderer to most. But according to the information we have, she's actually a little different from all that. For one thing, she's always willing to extend a helping hand to anyone who depends on her, and anyone willing to accept her help is sure to receive it, but if you don't listen to her advice, she'll never deal with you again. Whatever her motivations, though, I am assured she is a rational leader. Maybe so, I replied, my voice lower, but she didn't listen to me at all. She didn't. From the moment we met, I was her enemy. Her blade had already decided that. Even if someone had fed her lies about me, no, especially if they had, it didn't feel like she had any doubts. No hesitation, no questions, just kill. Well, said Errol, folding his arms, that would be because one core tenet of Luminism is that you are never allowed to bargain with monsters. That caught my attention. I blinked. Seriously, quite seriously. It's a foundational belief of the church, Errol said. From their perspective, negotiation or compromise with any monster is akin to heresy. Even if you had spoken to her, she likely wouldn't have accepted your words. So that's what I was up against. Not just a personal grudge or misunderstanding, but doctrine. I sighed internally. Hinata was strong, very strong, but she was also respected, even admired. And now I understood why she was such a big deal. The way Errol spoke, she had a reputation even in Thalian. Probably in every human nation connected to the West. Was it just because she was powerful? Or, was it also because she was beautiful? I mean, that cold, intense aura, the sharp eyes, silver hair, that figure. No, bad Rimuru. Focus. Now was not the time for that train of thought. The point is, I said, straightening a little, Hinata's a serious threat. If I could at least get her to talk to me, we could set something up where we don't have to be dueling to the death. I didn't want to fight her again if I didn't have to. There was too much uncertainty, and the stakes were too high. But if the Western Holy Church labeled me an enemy of divinity? If they painted me as some unholy calamity rising from the darkness? A duel would be unavoidable. I'll try to prevent that if I can, I said quietly. But, if it happens, it happens. Ha. Perhaps I could go out and take care of her, then. There is no better way to quell your anxieties for the future than eliminating the problem from the start, no. Wow, Diablo, confident much. Being the new guy on the team must have made him really eager to prove himself. Whoa, you realize even I lost to Hinata, right? I said, raising an eyebrow. Just because you're here now doesn't mean this'll be over in 5 minutes. She's right, Shion added, a dangerous smile tugging at her lips. If someone like you thinks you're up for it, then I'll just go take care of Hinata myself. I await your order, Lady Rimuru. Oh no, first Diablo starts mouthing off, and then Shion jumps in with her usual battle lust. One makes trouble, the other sets it on fire. Now, Lady Shion, Diablo said smoothly, brushing a gloved hand through his hair. I do owe you for helping me understand how best to assist our Lady Rimuru, but I regretfully must say, I doubt you could defeat Hinata. Quote. You wanna say that again? Shion growled, standing up. If you insist, I could demonstrate. No, I slammed my hand on the table. We are not having a duel in the middle of a summit. They both froze. Quote. As you command, Lady Rimuru, Sheehan muttered, arms crossed. Of course, Diablo replied with a bow. Your will is absolute. Honestly, with these two, I'm never sure if I'm leading a nation or babysitting a pair of ticking time bombs. Veldora rose dramatically, his voice booming. Gwa ha 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 ha. So it's time for me to take action, is it? Very well, I shall deliver divine punishment upon this Hinata person. Snap. Without a word, Seal stepped forward. She calmly unfolded her fan with a soft flutter, and smack. The sound echoed in the hall as she struck Veldora cleanly across the head. Yeah, he shrieked, stumbling back into his seat with wide eyes. See, Seal, that was uncalled for. You didn't even let me finish. She returned to her place behind me without a single word, folding the fan neatly once more. The entire room fell into stunned silence. Did that maid just hit the storm dragon? Fuse whispered, his voice trembling slightly. The three lycanthropiers stared with mouths half open, visibly shaken. Erald's brow twitched as he watched Veldora meekly slink back to his seat. That maid. She struck the storm dragon without hesitation. He shook his head slowly, voice hushed. What kind of people are you surrounded by, Lady Rimuru? Gazel muttered, I thought only a true dragon could fight a true dragon, yet she just. Veldora whined from his seat like a scolded dog. As she always does this. I sighed and gave a small smile. Don't worry, everyone, that just means she likes him. A few nervous laughs rippled through the room, but the lingering fear in their eyes said enough. Smacking a god-tier dragon and living. That left an impression. Ren, for her part, remained a picture of composure. Not a flicker of emotion crossed her face, though her fingers gently adjusted the lace cuff at her wrist with deliberate precision, a tiny motion I knew meant she was fighting back a smirk. Either way, now for the real work. So, right, everything I just discussed with you is the truth, I began, voice steady, but what we'll announce to the public will be adjusted. The Tempest delegates looked confused. For monsters, strength usually spoke for itself, there wasn't much use for political misdirection. But this was a different kind of battlefield. Benimaru asked the expected question. Lady Rimuru, what is the purpose of changing the account? And in what way? Before I could answer, King Gazel spoke up, his deep voice cutting across the hall. This was decided in advance, he said firmly. It is a necessary measure to protect not only Tempest, but the balance of the entire region. Archduke Erald nodded in agreement beside him. There is wisdom in cloaking the truth. If handled poorly, this could lead to panic or worse, open hostility from forces unprepared to deal with what has happened here. I gave a grateful glance to both men, then turned back to the hall. We'll declare that I claimed the title of Demon Lord, thanks to Veldora's backing. I won't mention awakening, or any power that would make me look like a threat. Let people think I was just brave or reckless enough to make the claim while leaning on my friendship with the Storm Dragon. That explanation settled in the air like a quiet ripple. No one objected. If anyone asks about the Pharmus army, I continued, we'll say they were caught in Veldora's return and wiped out in the chaos. I just happened to stop him before things got worse. Some of the attendees looked shaken, but the logic was sound. This way, I added, the rest of the world won't fear me as some catastrophe waiting to happen. I'll just be a monster who got lucky, and maybe earned a little too much attention. Clayman will see it as overconfidence, Gazel added smoothly. Which works in our favor. Ren bowed slightly from her place at my side. We will ensure that both internal and external messages are prepared accordingly, my lady. I nodded, and the summit continued, one calculated move at a time. I let the silence linger for a moment, watching the reactions ripple through the room. If anyone here is opposed to this, I said slowly, please speak up now. Especially you, Veldora, since, well, I'd basically be letting you take the blame for my sins. All eyes turned to the Storm Dragon. But Veldora only grinned, arms crossed proudly across his chest. There is no problem at all. He declared without hesitation. I have decided to share in your karma, little sister. So feel free to use the great name and influence of the Storm Dragon as you wish. Gwa ha ha ha. A few gasps echoed from the foreign envoys at the dramatic declaration. I blinked at him, taken aback for a moment, then gave a soft laugh. Thanks, Veldora, I murmured, unable to hide the small smile tugging at my lips. My chest felt a little warm. For all his bombast and chaos, he always came through when it counted. Touched by his words, I gave a grateful nod. I'll try not to overdo it. We had a backstory, and now that we had a shared foundation, it was time to decide what came next. I explained how we currently held both the King of Pharmus and one of the church's archbishops in custody. In their place, we planned to support Yom as the new king and begin rebuilding the region as a new nation, one that could stand proudly on its own. From there, the conversation flowed naturally: strategies, logistics, potential threats. Everyone chimed in, and things were progressing better than I expected. Just as I was about to move on to the next topic, a sudden laugh broke the rhythm. Peefa ha 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 ha. It came from none other than Harold. "This is so entertaining," he said between chuckles. Leaders and representatives of entire nations, sharing ideas openly, honestly, without the usual backstabbing and half-truths. I must look like a fool for keeping my guard up this whole time. Despite the laughter, his eyes still gleamed with sharpness. The man who stood before us now was no longer the flustered father fretting over his daughter. It was Archduke Harold of Thalion, the political heavyweight who couldn't afford to speak freely back home. With no warning, he rose to his feet, and the air around him turned taut with quiet pressure. The mood shifted instantly, conversation stopped, and every eye turned toward him in silence. Even I held my breath slightly, unsure of what was coming next. ... Except for Veldora. Flip, flip, the sound of pages turning echoed through the hall. Wait, what? There he was, calmly reading a manga. One I didn't remember giving him. Oi, how'd you even get that? I muttered under my breath, narrowing my eyes. He didn't react. Of course he didn't. Veldora wasn't paying attention to the summit at all. Figures. Still, at least he was staying quiet, and honestly, seeing him like that did wonders for my nerves. It was hard to take things too seriously with that guy around. I exhaled and turned back to Harold. Okay, let's see what the Archduke has to say. Lady Rimuru, let me ask you, how do you intend to wield your powers as a demon lord? Oh, honestly, that one was easy. No need for speeches or big declarations. I just wanna make a world that's easy to live in, I said with a shrug. You know, a place where people don't have to fight over food or safety or stupid stuff. Where everyone's got a shot at being happy. No bluffing, no trying to dodge it. That really was what I wanted. Always had been. That kind of thing, I guess. I mean, I'm not perfect. I'll probably mess up here and there. Might hit some walls, maybe even crash through a few. You seriously believe you can build that kind of fantasy world? I grinned. Well, yeah, that's what I've got power for, isn't it? No point in having it if you're not gonna do something good with it. I leaned back a little, still smiling. Look, ideals without power are just nice dreams people give up on, and power without ideals, that's just empty. I've got both, so why not try? Ha, ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. Hilarious. That is hilarious, Demon Lord Rimuru. A demon lord, versed in the concept of karma. I think I understand why you managed to awaken yourself now. I didn't stop him from laughing. Honestly, I didn't really mind. If anything, it felt like a weight was lifting from the room. So I just let him get it out of his system. And once he was done, Harold stood up, then, to my surprise, knelt down right there in front of me. My pardons, he said, with the grace and polish of a seasoned noble. Demon Lord Rimuru, as the envoy of the sorceress dynasty of Thalion, I hereby request the establishment of formal diplomatic relations with your nation, the Jura Tempest Federation. I hope to hear a positive reply from you. The hall fell quiet again, except for that page flipping. Better not let that bother me. If I turned around right now, the entire atmosphere would collapse. The sight of a fully grown storm dragon lounging on a sofa, reading manga and sipping iced tea someone made for him, my brain would short-circuit. Just ignore it. Deep breaths. I was hoping we could build a positive relationship myself, I said. I'll gladly accept the offer. Cheers erupted almost instantly. People shot to their feet, applauding as if we'd just sealed a royal marriage or something. It was noisy, enthusiastic, and honestly, kinda heartwarming. Today, we welcomed another faithful ally. Just as the summit was winding down, and I felt it was time to wrap things up. Wham! The doors flew open as someone stormed in. I heard all that. Tempest shall fall to ruin. There was a tiny winged girl, and while it was hard to believe from looks, it was Romulus of the Labyrinth, one of the world's 10 demon lords. To be continued.